Hi, I'm Lauren Borderkins, and I chose to do my presentation over Chapter 1, which is an overview of organizational behavior. If you'll move to the introduction slide, you'll see a brief outline of what we're going to be discussing today. You'll also see a picture of zebras, which correlates to the picture of zebras on our textbook. The reason why the authors chose zebras to represent organizational behavior is because they believe zebras are organizational animals to which they have groups and leaders, and they perform specific tasks such as finding food or water. And even though all of the zebras have black and white stripes, each of the patterns is unique to each zebra. So, like zebras, each member can bring a unique perspective to organization. But what is organizational behavior? On the slide, you will see the different components of the definition that the textbook gives, but basically, organizational behavior is when members within an organization interact with other members or the organization itself, both internally and externally. And as a field of study, it has a interdisciplinary focus. As you may guess, psychology is one of the main components as psychology studies human behavior. But as you look at the list, you may see other disciplines that you weren't aware of as influencing organizational behavior, such as economy or medicine. Organizational behavior is also descriptive in nature because it evaluates the relationships between members in the organization or members with other members within the organization. And so that's something that's very hard to put into tangible numbers or statistics, which is why it's considered descriptive. Well, why would we study organizational behavior? Many of us are going to be members and participate in various organizations, usually multiple organizations at a time throughout our lives. And understanding our role within the organization and how organizations influence us are very important. As Christians, we can look at it as we're all members of one body of Christ. And so if we can see that as an organization and how we behave within the organization and what our role is, we can have a better outlook on what it means to be a member of one body of Christ. And organizational behavior also happens to relate very heavily with the management process. And most of us are probably either managers already or looking to be managers in some aspect in our careers. And once we enhance our management skills through organizational behaviors, we have more opportunities and promotions available to us. Now let's look at how organizational behavior relates to the management process. On slide 6, you'll see 4 basic resources and 4 basic functions. Let's put this into an example. Say we want to open up a restaurant. We need to have human resources, which would be the employees. We need financial resources, so how much are those ingredients going to cost? What do we need to price each item at in order to make a profit? Physical resources would be ovens, stoves, plates, glassware, silverware, anything we need to cook and serve the food. Information resources would be market research, the location of the restaurant. Would the type of restaurant we want to have do well in that location? Once we have our resources, we can look at starting the 4 basic functions. Planning is the first step. This is what we want our restaurant to be and where we want it to be in the next 5 to 10 years. Then it's organizing. We need to know how many employees we need to have and what are going to be their job functions. Who has authority to make decisions for the restaurant? Leading would be the next step. That's managing all of the employees to make sure we're all working together in order to achieve the goals of the company. Controlling would be monitoring and, at times, correcting certain actions of employees so that we make sure everyone's in line to achieve the goals of the company. But managers also have specific roles, which are interpersonal, informational, and decision-making. Let's look at a higher education institution. Interpersonal would be someone who's a liaison between different departments, making sure that they can talk to the different departments and achieve similar goals. Informational manager would be someone who, say, works in human resources. They want to disseminate information such as policies or procedures for all employees. Decision-making managers would be the president or the provost of a higher education institution. They can negotiate and make decisions that have financial impact usually for the university. But managers also need to have critical managerial skills. Technical skills for higher education may be teaching, administration, or IT. Interpersonal skills would be like the liaison. They can manage people and motivate people to achieve certain goals. This could be a dean of some sort. Conceptual skills would be, say, a provost. They look at the big picture. They see where the university needs to move and how we can move in that direction. Diagnostic skills would be, say, a CFO of a university. They can make decisions, or they can see the cause and effect of certain decisions as well, such as if the university moves in a certain direction, that may mean that tuition needs to rise a certain percentage. Having a variety of these different skills can kind of put you in a spot of what type of manager you need to be. You can see the graph there on slide 7. But organizational behavior also has various perspectives. There's a systems perspective. So let's take Starbucks, for example. Inputs could be the human resources that you have and, let's say, ingredients for a drink. Then the transformation would be using the machines in order to make a drink. So using the press and then heating up the milk. Outputs would be the actual drinks that the employees make. And then the feedback environment comes from the consumer, what they think about the drink and how their experience was while they were at that Starbucks. But there's also situational perspectives. At one time they thought the universal approach, which is one best way, was the best approach. But we realized that a situational approach is more effective because in a lot of ways the situation has a lot of variables, or it's multivariable, to produce certain outcomes. So for instance, if you go to a Starbucks and you say you want an iced coffee, an employee may offer to put vanilla syrup in it to say that it makes it taste more delicious, and so you decide to get the syrup in your drink. But another employee may tell you not to get the vanilla syrup because they had it before and it was just too sweet. Both could have great outcomes because if you're a consumer who enjoys a sweet drink, you could go ahead and put the vanilla syrup in. But if you are a consumer who doesn't like sweet drinks, you may be thankful that the person told you the syrup makes it too sweet. There's also interactionalism, which I did put the exact definition that the textbook gives because I really thought it was a great description of it. But I put various photos of coaches on this slide because I believe they're a great example of interactionalism. They can assess a certain situation and decide how a player needs to interact or react in that situation. So then the player produces a certain behavior. And I think being a good coach shows a good use of organizational behavior. Understanding organizational behavior is very important for managing effectiveness within an organization because there are varying levels within an organization. So there's individual, group or team, and organization. And though each of the three of those may have similar outcomes such as productivity, the varying degrees of productivity is going to be different. So as a manager, you know what to look for in cases of individual productivity, group productivity, and what that means for the organization's productivity, which is very beneficial as a manager because you get a perspective of all three areas. Now let's talk about some companies who get it. From our textbook, Wegmans was mentioned. They had a very high retention rate, and some of their employees have worked there for 25 years or more. Southwest Airlines was also mentioned. I actually knew somebody personally who worked at Southwest Airlines and they loved it. When they came to work with me, they just talked about Southwest Airlines all the time, and they eventually ended up leaving and going back to work for Southwest Airlines because they missed it that much. Apple Computer was another example. because of the creativity and innovation they allow their employees to have while working at the company. Walt Disney World was another example because the organizational behavior that it had trickled down all the way to the lowest level employee, so that that person had an inherent need to make sure that every patron who came to Walt Disney World left happy. From other resources such as Forbes, Google was the #1 place to work for, and St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital was another one because they actually made donations for their employees who volunteered time. Epic Health Systems is another one that I can speak about personally because I had a chance to go to Wisconsin and train there. They had a very fun way of teaching you how to program and code for health systems, which sounds boring initially, but they put a spin on it to make you enjoy it. They also had a lot of amenities there, such as retreats for their employees, great benefits packages, and an on-site cafeteria with wonderful food. Now let's go over what we discussed today, which was a lot. Human behavior interacting with organizations is organizational behavior. Organizational behavior is also interdisciplinary and descriptive. It helps us understand roles and management. There are 4 basic resources and 4 basic functions. Managers perform basic roles and they need to have or possess critical skills in order to be an effective manager. There are systems, situational, and interactional perceptions of organizational behavior. And then understanding organizational behavior can help us manage effective outcomes for organizations based in the levels of individual, group and team, and organization. So, as our discussion question, during our textbook reading and in this presentation, we kind of discussed environment and how it relates to organization behavior. So, what do you believe are some aspects of environment that affect organizational behavior? And if you have time, please find a humorous comic that is related to organizational behavior or management, such as Dilbert, which if you move to the next slide, you'll see what I put as my example. But just to kind of keep it fun, if you can add that in your reply, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much for allowing me to explain organizational behavior and do an overview of it for you for this class. Have a great day.